Oftentimes when we talk about the transfer portal or we talk about NIL, we automatically just think of college athletes. But the real impact is hitting them before they even step foot on campus. And no one is really addressing the situation. Hey guys, welcome back to Baseline Full Court Pressed, the podcast where women's basketball gets the spotlight, the smoke, and the respect. I'm your host, Patience, and today we'll be diving into a topic that is not talked about a lot, which is how NIL and the transfer portal is affecting high school recruiting. For some people, you may not even know what NIL is or what the transfer portal is. So let me go ahead and give you the breakdown. The transfer portal is an online system that was created in 2018 to allow college athletes to declare their intent to transfer. And that's where the transfer aspect comes from, because the athletes are transferring schools. And then where the portal comes from is because this portal, this online system, allows coaches and the NCAA to go ahead and track who is available, who is transferring, who has the eligibility to transfer, and those things. And NIL is an acronym for name, image, and likeness, which allows student athletes to earn money based on their name, likeness, and their image. And NILs for most college students, whether that be NCAA, NAIA, or NJCAA, and some high school athletes depending on their state's laws. First, I want to start off with the strongest impact, and that is going to be from the transfer portal. Now, so we can get a better understanding of exactly how the transfer portal has progressed over the years, I'll go ahead and go over a timeline for us. Like I said in the beginning, the transfer portal did start in 2018. That is when it was first introduced. And then in 2020, the COVID year hit, and that is when the NCAA gave every athlete a additional year of eligibility, because if you don't know, if you weren't in school at that time, lucky for you. But for me, I was, and we all got sent home. We went home for spring break and we never came back. So they gave us an extra year of eligibility because no one was really able to finish out their season. Now, at this time, you still had to sit out a year if you did transfer schools. That is the original rule. You can transfer as long as you are good in academic standing, and you will also have to sit out a year. But in 2021, there was still some miscommunication. There was still some backfiring from the COVID year. So in 2021, they allowed immediate eligibility for one-time transfers, which means you transferred and you were able to play no matter what. You did not have to sit out. You were automatically eligible to play, which was something that no transfer was used to. In 2022, they allowed more flexible extensions to be granted. So this is still the trickle-down effect of the pandemic. Now, in 2024, the Division I committee ratified the rule, and it now grants athletes immediate eligibility at their new school, regardless of their previous transfer history. Now, I know you're like, okay, well, how is this affecting high school students? I'm not getting it yet, Patience. Now that there is a transfer portal, coaches now have two options for getting players to their school. Option 1, develop a freshman, or option 2, get someone from the transfer portal who already has experience. Most coaches in that situation will choose experience because we want someone who knows a little bit of what they're doing. And now it's putting high school recruits in the position of being a project, causing high school students to lose their leverage. Now, coaches do not need to take a chance. This especially hurts the mid-tier players. If you are a top 1 through 10 high school recruit, you may not have any issue. But if you're a 1 through 10 recruit, you also have a lot of exposure before you even get to college. They're willing to get that exposure. And that's also something that I'll touch on later on when we get to NIL. Every year, the amount of student athletes in the transfer portal becomes more and more. Just last year, there were over 31,000 athletes in the transfer portal. Over 31,000 athletes. Obviously, that does include all sports at that school, but nonetheless, the transfer portal is the transfer portal. Imagine how many of those athletes are from basketball, right? Coaches have the opportunity to pull from this huge talent pool. At this point, it's like a free agency. There's so many different options, so many different fits. And yes, that may be a good thing for those college coaches, but it trickles down to high school recruits. Now that there's this huge pool of talent, even really good high school players who would have went D2, D1 are now forced to go D3, NAIA, or junior college, simply because there are more options. And I was watching the podcast the other day with Jewel Lloyd called The Warehouse, and she really put it into perspective. She said that,
I feel bad for the next generation of athletes who are trying to get to college because that's the only way out, or because they've been working their butts off to try to play in college that maybe aren't going to be professional athletes or have the opportunity to go to college. It's making it really hard. How can these high school kids then present themselves not as a project? Is it, better training? Is it them going over? I don't know. Like, it's just a crazy dynamic. But that's just different than anything we've ever seen before, which is why I think at some point it's going to have to change, because it's not college sports. You can't even say college anymore.
I feel like it also in a way puts ease up on the coaches, because it's not like, okay, now I have to create her into this, or I have to see if we can work on this. And rather than, I know I've seen her be coached by this person and I know this is what works for her. It's essentially a lazier way to recruit. A lazier, but kind of more efficient, to be honest, because if I was a coach, would I rather pick experience or would I rather pick development? Now, if I was a coach, I would pick between both, but that's just me. I'm not a coach. And I can say from my experience, I did transfer schools in 2019. I transferred from a D1 junior college to a D3. Thankfully, I did not have to sit out because there were technicalities that I did not fit into, so I was able to play immediately when I got there. But I was mentally prepared to sit out. And I think a lot of players don't take the time now to think about that decision of transferring, because you can transfer anywhere you want now. There's no penalties, there's no consequences. I can just transfer, and if it's not a good fit, oh well, I can transfer again. My take is that I think a better version of the transfer portal would be if the athletes could transfer twice without penalty, and then on that third time, you do have to sit out, because honestly, I cannot fathom why you would be transferring 3 to 4 times in your college career. Yes, I know there's such things as there's not a good fit, not good coaches, not a good environment. I truly believe in those things. But if every single school is not a good fit, maybe the school is not the problem. There needs to be restrictions and regulations, so it's not a free-for-all free agency. And with all of that being said about the transfer portal, that coupled up with NIL is a little disastrous for the high school athlete. NIL first came around so student athletes could be compensated for the revenue that they generate for their schools, which is phenomenal. Like, honestly, I'm so glad that they came out with that, because sometimes student athletes generate millions and millions of dollars and never see a dime. NIL has turned into something that no one else could even fathom. Let's go ahead and get into the short timeline of NIL. So in June 2021, the NCAA approved interim NIL deals, right? In July of 2021, they made it to where college athletes can begin getting NIL deals. It is not interim, it is a policy now. In 2023 to 2024, they did increase state legislation and enforcement. So they made it to where multiple states could have NIL, because a lot of states weren't doing NIL at one point, and they just made it a little more lucrative for everyone. And then in 2025, the House and the NCAA had a settlement that allows direct athletic compensation at opt-in Division I schools. So that means these schools can now directly pay the athlete for those opt-in schools. Under these new changes, student athletes will now be able to negotiate NIL deals before even stepping foot on campus. And that is a big deal, because the only money or the only compensation or anything of that sort that you would have normally been receiving before getting recruited would have just been this scholarship, like we're just giving you the amount of the scholarship is going towards your tuition. That would have been the normal currency, right? But now NIL is acting as a secondary currency for recruiting. NIL creates a bidding pressure that starts at the top and trickles all the way down to the little guy. Big programs and collectives can attach NIL opportunities to recruiting, and they have the money, so they are able to do that, which then forces other schools to compete financially, even if it's unofficial. And with all that money coming out, it creates fewer opportunities for the high school recruits, because a school only has so much money to throw at an athlete. A school only has so much leeway, and opening up that leeway takes spots away from other players. Then it causes fewer high school offers and creates only very, very selective recruiting. Like I said in the beginning, if you are not a top 1 through 10 recruit, it's kind of going to be hard out there for you. It's going to be sharks and minnows, and you are the minnow. This also then shifts the priorities for the recruits. Some players now consider earning potential alongside fit, development, playing time, honestly. And getting recruited somewhere and going to college to play a sport that you love is probably the biggest moment of your life. Now to add a financial on top of that, when there's already financials for students who can't afford tuition, who really do bank on those scholarships. Five-star recruits, they get structured. They have an agent, they have this, they have that. While the mid-tier recruits, they don't really have anyone to help them navigate this financial world, or how to get a contract, how to get a deal, how to maximize their name, image, and likeness, which then leads to a bigger risk of exploitation of high school athletes. So most colleges and most high schools do not have any opportunity for the student athlete to get help regarding any NIL, regarding any financial literacy opportunities. I want to go into a 2023 example of high school students using NIL, and just so I can further my point of how this could get really out of hand. So by 2023, some Texas high school students used legal loopholes to secure lucrative NIL deals. Although several ways are possible, which includes signing with brands while playing for club teams rather than their UIL affiliated high school. That was the most common loophole. And if we really think long term, this loophole could eradicate the high school athlete aspect. Because let's say AAU wants to go all year round. So now the athletes who want the exposure, they want the deals, they want to go to college, and they know that AAU is the place to do it. So let's say those students do AAU all year round, and they just go to school, and no one wants to play high school sports except for the lowest of the lowest, right? That could be a thing because the pipeline to college is starting to change a little. So essentially, NIL ends up amplifying those inequalities in recruiting rather than leveling them. When I got recruited in college, I went to the school that was giving me the most money off of my tuition per se. I'm a first college graduate, which I know a lot of people are, and I needed to go where I did not have to pay a lot of money and I could still be able to follow my dreams and be on a good team and have a good experience. Now, did I have a good experience? That's neither here nor there, but I think that NIL is just a louder, less structured version of the same reality. So NIL plus the transfer portal is essentially changing recruiting as we know it. It's changing the dynamics, it's changing the aspects, it's changing the incentives. The best way that I can put this is that the NIL has an indirect impact, causing students to take into account pressure to get NIL deals, and it furthers the inequality that was already there. NIL doesn't replace scholarships, but for top recruits, it can outweigh them. So at the end of the day, when we talk about NIL and the transfer portal, and we automatically think college athletes, we also need to take a step back and realize that this is affecting athletes far before they step foot on their college campus. They're impacting high school players right now at this very moment trying to get recruited. And if things keep going the way that they are, things could get really out of hand and we could see an entire different structure for recruiting. There needs to be a stronger regulation and restriction to allow these student athletes to at least have a fair shot. Because right now, the system isn't just changing college recruiting. It's reshaping who even gets the chance to get recruited at all. And this is a topic that I've wanted to talk about for a really long time, but I just wanted to make sure that I got the steps in order and the pipeline, because it can be a little hard just explaining it and getting everyone to understand the aspect of it and how it can trickle down so far. So I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to Baseline Full Court Press. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all of the above. We are on TikTok and Instagram, as well as YouTube at Baseline Full Court Press and Spotify. So thank you guys, and don't forget to tune in next week. Also this week, I will be asking a poll on my Instagram for our next video. So if you want to contribute to what the next topic is, go ahead and go over to Instagram and tap that poll for me.